Okay, when we look at this poem by Bruce Dawe, we've got to look at it from two different perspectives. Number one, we look at it internally in the poem, from the drill sergeant's point of view, okay, and look at his voice and the way that he uses language, and we deconstruct and analyse that as one level of the poem. The second level of the poem is Bruce Dawe, the poet himself, and he is writing a protest against Australia's involvement in the Vietnam War. So we've got these two things to focus on. What we've always got to remember when we're looking at the drill sergeant's voice and language is that it was Bruce Dawe who wrote the poem intentionally. So he creates this drill sergeant's voice. So we always have to keep that in the back of our mind, that all the intentional things that the drill sergeant does is created by Bruce Dawe, the poet. Okay, so we've also got to remember when we're looking at this poem holistically that we know that Bruce Dawe was against the Vietnam War. So the poem needs to be a part of his protest. And what we've got to focus on is, well, what is Bruce Dawe doing to try and establish that the Vietnam War is something that Australia shouldn't be involved in? And how does he use the voice of the drill sergeant and the language in the poem to establish that idea? All right, so I'll go through it just slowly. And you see, the annotations are there. We'll go through those annotations and I'll explain them a little bit further. So the first bit is that when we look at the title of the poem, Weapons Training, we sort of get the impression that it would be that the recruits or the soldiers would come and they would learn how to use weapons, in war. So they'd learn how to use a rifle or a machine gun or whatever it is that they might be training the people in. But the irony is that it is not that they're learning that in fact the weapon that is being trained is the human being. It is the recruit, it's the soldier. And that to train that man to kill another human being and to hate their enemy is more important than showing them how to shoot a gun. So realistically, we see that the weapon is people, it's humans, okay? And I guess straight away, when we know that that is the reality of what the drill sergeant is trying to do, we see Dawe's commentary, okay? Dawe's saying, is that right? Should we be training young men to be weapons? And obviously, his answer is no, and he wants us to share that answer with him. Then it starts, and the drill sergeant is speaking quickly. It sort of starts mid-sentence, and when I say eyes right, so there's that sort of it's almost like we've come in to a speech that is already being delivered. So that conjunction at the start is quite effective in showing the continuous nature of the speaker. All right, and we'll notice this throughout the poem that the drill sergeant just continues to speak. All right, and obviously when he says I say eyes right, I want to hear those eyeballs click. So the use of onomatopoeia there is to really exaggerate that he wants absolute silence. Now, when you think about this, the drill sergeant is the only voice in the poem. The soldiers and the recruits, they have no voice at all. So that is very important as well, that they are the voiceless. Okay, they have no capacity to speak, to give their opinion or to share their point of view. So that's a very important part of what Dawe is trying to establish, that the recruits had no voice, no ability to sort of ask questions or to pose their point of view. So that onomatopoeia really establishes that really clearly. And then this continuing sort of nature of onomatopoeia and the gentle pitter-patter of falling dandruff. All right, so you see there that that idea of the pitter-patter, so it's going to be so quiet, the soldiers are going to listen so intently that you could actually hear dandruff fall off their head. So again, there's a hyperbole there included in the onomatopoeia, like he's exaggerating how quiet it must be because he wants them to only hear his voice and his ideas and what he's communicating. You see there at the end of dandruff that he switches, and there's a lot of these switches in the poem, and he goes, you there, what's the matter? So visually, if you were standing in front of the drill sergeant, he's now focusing on a different person. So he might have been addressing the entire sort of group of men, and now he's focusing on someone individually. Why are you looking at me? Are you a queer? Now you'll notice that when these shifts happen and he starts looking and focusing at different soldiers or different recruits, that there is no punctuation. Okay, doesn't use a comma, doesn't use a full stop. And again, this establishes the voice. It's continuous. It's uncontrollable. He just goes at these young men without even taking a breath. All right, the only breath that he takes in the entire poem is a couple of questions. Okay, that he poses. And the rhetorical nature of this question, "Are you a queer?" All right, is belittling. Why he's just told them to look at him and to focus intently, and then when they do look at him, he accuses them of being homosexual. Now, this degradation, is part of what the drill sergeant is doing. He wants to get them to the point where they trust him only, and that they don't feel the capacity to even question what this drill sergeant is saying. Now, in the drill sergeant's point of view, this is vital, because if he's going to be able to convince them to do what he says, he's going to be able to keep them safe in war. So there is a method to the madness. But Dawe is saying, is that methodology, all right, belittling, degrading other human beings to ensure that they listen to you in a war situation, is it right that we're putting these young men through this sort of torture, mental torture at this stage, before we even send them to war? All right, so then when he gets to the next part, he's, look to your front. If you had one more brain, it'd be lonely. Okay, so again, we get that further sort of example of degradation. What are you laughing at? All right, so now he's in a different person. All right, so you see the quick shifts. You there, look to your front. What are you laughing at? All right, so there's different people being focused on. All right, so he's not trying to just belittle the whole group at once. Sometimes he's belittling individuals. All right, giving them very focused attention. You in the back row with the unsightly fat between your elephant ears. All right, so again, more criticism, more degradation, more humiliation. All right, and pretty quickly, the recruits are going to understand that they are not to smile, they are not to have emotion, they are to just simply look straight forward and listen and say, "Yes, sir." And then you call them on and listen. Remember first the cockpit drill. When you go down, be sure the old crown jewels are safely tucked away. All right, so he recalls them back to some of their training that they've already done. And he talks about the old crown jewels. Okay, so there's a lot of sexual innuendo to some degree, so that he gets across his point to the audience that he's speaking to. So he's obviously speaking to 18, 19, 20-year-old young men. So he appeals to things that he feels that are important to them. So at their sexual peak in their lives, for those young men, their old crown jewels are like a slang word for their testicles, are pretty important to them. All right, they want to protect that part of their body. So then he says, what could be more distressing than to hold off with a burst from your trusty weapon, a mob of the little yellows? All right, so then he's trying to show them, he's trying to create an image for them. All right, you're there. You can control your destiny by killing others, all right, by killing the enemy. He refers to the Vietnamese as little yellows, a racist term. And again, what he's trying to do here as the drill sergeant is dehumanize the enemy, make them seem like someone that would be easy to kill and appropriate to kill. Now, again, as the drill sergeant is doing this, we see the undercurrent of Dawe saying, number one, should we be sexualizing 19 to 20-year-olds to protect them? And should we be degrading other human beings to make these men feel like it is appropriate to kill another human being? So there's all these comments that Dawe is making by showing us what the drill sergeant is doing and showing us what these young recruits are experiencing. Then he says, only to find back home because of your positions, your chances of turning the key in the ignition considerably reduced. So again, he refers to sex. The key in the ignition is an allusion to having sex themselves when they get back home, and the fact that they can't do that. All right, the chances of them doing that will be considerably reduced because they didn't listen to the instructions. They didn't follow the cockpit drill, and they didn't protect the old crown jewels. So when you get to that point, you sort of again get the sense that what's more important is not even just their lives, but their ability to come back home and have the life that they want to live. Now, obviously, sex to a young man is what the drill sergeant believes will motivate them to listen. All right, and that's why he uses that that sort of example to try and put them in a position of desperation. All right, and in that desperation, they will listen and do exactly what he says. All right, then he goes on. All right, now suppose for the sake of argument, you've got a number one blockage, and you've got to go. Basically, you've got to go to the toilet. All right, and a brand new pack of Charlies. Again, Charlies is a racist term for the Viet Cong. Again, the army or the the army sort of produced this language to try and convince soldiers that it was okay to kill them because they are not human, they are not like Australians. All right, so pointing out these differences and trying to create this racist overtone in the drill sergeant's voice is a part of his technique. So these Charlies, these Viet Cong, they're coming at you. You can smell their rotten fish sauce breath. So like it says there in the notes, it's a common sort of ingredient in Vietnamese cooking. It's very pungent, very strong smelling sort of ingredient. So it's something quite distinct, something quite obvious, and it's again something to say like, look at that, they eat food that's disgusting. It doesn't even smell nice. So again, it's dehumanizing the enemy. It's giving you an ability to go, they're very different, they're not like you, and then giving you permission to hate, to detest these people, so that you can then feel comfortable about killing them. Now again, you see when we look at Dawe's point of view, he again asks us the question: is that okay? Now in 2014 in Australia, in a multicultural country where we genuinely accept all other races, we see that commentary it's hard for us to understand that that's okay. We don't accept that. So Dawe, even at the time, was trying to make that point of view, but I think that's becoming an even stronger point when we read this poem in retrospect and we think about whether that was a thing that we should have been teaching our young men. We evidently disagree with it because it's very prejudiced, very racist. The reality is too that we were actually going over to fight for the South Vietnamese. So we were fighting for the Vietnamese. That was who we were trying to protect from communism. So there's a real irony in being so racist, towards the Vietnamese soldiers in the north and the Viet Cong, when realistically there was a point where we were actually going to fight for the Vietnamese. All right, so there's no distinction given there between the South Vietnamese and North Vietnamese. So you've got these Viet Cong, the North Vietnam, they're hot on the back of your stupid neck. All right, now, what are you going to do about it? Okay, and again, there's that question mark, okay, that pause, that little bit of an opportunity for these recruits to stand and contemplate. What am I going to do about it? I'm in a war situation. My life is on the line. How will I react? Now, obviously, the drill sergeant is trying to say that there is only one way to react, and that is to attack, that is to defend. It's to shoot, all right, to kill or be killed, and that's how they need to react in these sort of situations. And then he says, that's right. He almost engages with the question himself. That's right. Grab and check the magazine, man. It's not a woman's tit. Worse luck or you'd be set too late. So then he says, okay, you've got the rifle, you've got the gun in your hand, you've got your finger on the trigger, and it's not an enjoyable thing. Again, he sexualizes a woman's breast. Again, something that an 18, 19, 20-year-old sort of bloke can relate to. So again, you see that sexualization in the drill sergeant's language, and intentionally chosen, all right? The irony there, I read in a few different analysis, I think it's interesting too, that the breast of your mother is nurturing, it's life-giving at the start of your life. The irony here being that might not be the case under extreme pressure. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but it is an interesting analysis. Worse luck, or you'd be set too late, you nit, then they're on you, all right? So basically, if you don't react quickly, you don't pull that trigger really, really quickly instead of treating it nicely like a woman's breast, you've got to pull that trigger hard, all right? Or if you don't, if you're too late and you sit and sort of wait, then the Viet Cong, North Vietnamese soldiers will be on you, and your tripes are around your neck. Now the tripes are your intestines, your insides. So basically that they'll cut you. All right. So it's not even like the way that that you'll get killed will be nice. The drill sergeant sensationalizes the way you'll be killed. That you'll be gutted, and your intestines will be outside your body, and pulled around your neck. Like it's a very violent image of the way that you'll be killed. So it's very interesting the way that the drill sergeant chooses to paint this image for the soldiers. And why does he do it? Because it's brutal, it's scary, and if that is what could happen if you don't listen, and you don't follow instructions, and you don't do exactly what the drill sergeant tells you to do in war, then are you going to listen? Yeah, of course you're going to listen. And that's what the drill sergeant's trying to get them to think about. Again, in that sort of understanding, the question mark is posed by Dawe to you as the reader. Is that right? Is that what we should be presenting to our young Australian men? Should we be presenting that that's what will happen, that they'll get gutted? Their intestines will be wrapped around their neck. Like it's the extreme violence of what the drill sergeant says allows Dawe to make commentary on whether we should be exposing our young men to this sort of language. Then it says, you've copped the bloody lot, just like I said, and you know what you are. And again, before he even mentions the last line where he sort of gives the repetition, the soldiers know the answer. That they know why they have to do what they're told to do, because you know what happens if you get it wrong. If they pulled that trigger really quickly and killed the soldier that was approaching them, then they wouldn't be in this situation. But that hesitation is what is going to get them killed. So if they don't train well and they don't have that, if they're not a personal weapon themselves in terms of being a killer, then they will be killed. All right. So he's trying to establish this so clearly for them, so that when he asks that question at the end, you know what you are, they know, I'm dead. I'm dead because I didn't listen. I didn't pull the trigger quick enough. I didn't know what the training had sort of got me ready to do. Am I ready to kill? Yeah, I'm ready to kill, because I don't want to be killed. And these guys are going to not just kill me, they're going to cut me open. They're going to kill me in the most brutal sort of manners. So we really sort of feel like, as the recruit, there's no option but to listen to what they're being told. And then this sort of real emphasis at the end: you're dead, dead, dead. And that repetition shows that in war, that is the reality. The reality is that if you aren't willing or ready to kill the enemy, then you are going to be killed yourself. All right, and that is a very final thing for a young man, to know that the potential for them to lose their life is real. That is obviously, when you're at that age, not something that you're really looking to happen to you. So then, are you going to train hard? Are you going to become that weapon, that murderous weapon that is going to go into war and kill others? Well, yes, you are. Okay, and there is the problem. Dawe wants us to reflect: is that right? Is that what we want to establish for our young Australian men, that they become killers, that they become brutal murderers of other people? And obviously the answer is no. Like, before these recruits come and speak to this drill sergeant, number one, do they have anything against the Vietnamese people? Is there any reason why they want to kill another human being? And is this something that they want to do? Now, obviously, with the reality of the background of the Vietnam War and conscription, the answers are no. They don't know anything about it. And do they have a real passion for that war? Not particularly. So there's a real feeling from Dawe that if these men didn't even ask to be in this war, and then this is how we treat them when they get into our training, and we're going to make them murderers, that this is inconsistent with what Australia is about. It's inconsistent with who we are as a people. And evidently he's then making a very strong protest about why we should not be involved in this war, because we don't want to be doing this to these young men. So throughout, you see in the purple there, I made this point that there is no pausing. When you hear this voice and the language used, the demeaning nature, the sexualization of it, the racism, all right, there's so many incorrect, like, sort of political ideas in this particular poem, that we start to see that the culmination or the combination of these things it's absolutely demeaning. These poor young men are being treated in such an inhumane manner, so that they can go into a theatre of war and be killers. All right, and that is the big question mark as to whether that is the right thing or not. And obviously, from Dawe's point of view, it is the wrong thing, and that's what he's trying to establish.